What is a panel in the Commonwealth procurement context? Well, today I'm going to run you through that, hopefully in a short video. It's Simon Zarifi here from Shrewd. We provide commercially astute assistance to the Commonwealth to help the Commonwealth successfully deliver value for money projects. So what is a panel? Well, the easiest way of thinking about a panel is that it is an arrangement, a contractual arrangement where you have pre-cleared suppliers. So the suppliers get cleared to be on the panel through an RF, like a request for tender. So the Commonwealth will go out for a tender seeking people they want to put on a panel for a particular type of good or service. So let's use a basic example. Let's say the Commonwealth wants to put in place a panel for contract managers. The Commonwealth would go out to market, usually through a request for tender, seeking companies that have the ability and the willingness to provide contract managers. And then the Commonwealth would do an evaluation to determine who of those potential vendors meet its criteria and should be put on the panel. And once the panel is created, then you might have, say, 5 or 10 or 15 pre-cleared suppliers, in this case, cleared to provide contract management services. So that's what a panel is. So they are the thing you need to be on if you are doing work in the Commonwealth space. You must be on a panel. It just makes it, 100 times easier for your business to get work. So why do entities such as departments put in place panels? Because once you put in place that arrangement, it's an easy way to procure goods and services regularly. So that is the main reason why you do it. And the second main reason is once the panel's been created, then any purchases off that panel are what's classified as an open market approach, which makes it internally much easier for those agencies to sign off on that relevant procurement. That's probably more detail than you need, but suffices to say that if you're a supplier, you want to be on the panel because it just makes it easier for the Commonwealth to use you. Now, as I alluded to 1 second ago, that once that panel's been created, a department or an entity can go direct to that panel and it can approach one or more suppliers. So say agency X wants to engage one entity to provide contract management services. Strictly because the panel's been created, that agency could go direct to that one supplier. We know that the ANAO always advocates that an entity engages in competition, which is consistent with the Commonwealth procurement rules. And so what that means is, while strictly you can, if you're a department, go straight to one supplier on a panel, it's always good to get competitive tension and get multiple quotes. But strictly, once the panel is created and a value for money assessment has been put in place or was done as part of creating that panel, then you can go direct to one supplier on the panel. Now let's just deal with a couple of other things about panels. So each purchase from the panel represents a separate procurement process. So each time an agency wants to make a purchase of supplies or goods from that panel, then that discrete engagement or that discrete procurement is a separate and distinct procurement process. And that gets reflected in the agency's Section 23(3) approvals, or whatever they call them, because that's what some agencies call them and other agencies call them other things. But the procurement process is cleared on a procurement by procurement basis for each procurement done under that relevant panel. Now, as I mentioned a second ago, that if an agency's put in place a panel, then procuring off that panel means you can go to one player or one panelist directly, and that is mainly because of the way the CPRs are, and they talk about the fact that Division 2 of the CPRs don't apply to procurements off a panel. However, in saying that, you still got to be mindful of Division 1, which talks about things, like efficient, effective, ethical. I can't remember the last one. The last one's effective. And the fact that Division 1 talks about value for money. So strictly, whilst you can avoid all of the obligations in Division 2 by procuring from a panel, You still need to think about value for money, etc. under Division 1, and that's one of the main reasons why the ANAO always talks about, even if you use a panel, you should still create competitive tension by getting multiple quotes. But you need to balance, I suppose, how many quotes you get versus the complexity of the panel or the services that you're after, because what they're trying to get at there is you still need to be efficient and effective when you undertake these procurements, and so you don't want to be going out to panelists or multiple panelists for what is a simple service, because it just creates an administrative overhead that really doesn't show much benefit, if that makes sense. Let's move on. So usually when you set up a panel arrangement, usually you have a deed of standing offer, which basically just says you, Mr. Panelist, are on this panel to provide a service or a good, or goods and services, and each time we, the Commonwealth, use the panel, we will enter into a work order or an official order, which will be a schedule under that deed, and each work order or official order, once signed, that is what creates the actual procurement contract. So just saying that another way, the deed of standing offer is the overarching head agreement, but there's no purchases under that deed of standing offer. Well, at least there's not 99% of the times. The deed of standing offer will have a process in there which basically says when the Commonwealth wants to order goods or services, it will send you a quote, and then it will sign up to a work order or an official order. And that subsequent document, the work order or the official order, is the document that creates the contract. And there we are, Simon's view of panels in 5 minutes or less. Actually, it's not 7 minutes or less. If you have any questions about that, feel free to get in touch, simon@shrewd.com.au or 1-800-SHREWD, which is 1-800-747-393. I know this has been fast. I've just been trying to zap through it to give you an overview as to what is panels and how they're used. Hope that helps.